Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. As Vice President, I will be chairing the meeting tonight as Board President Torres is unable to attend. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person or remotely. The board is following the requirement of Senate Bill SB 707, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. I note that Board Member Alvaro is attending remotely this evening on the basis of a disability accommodation. Board Member Alvaro, could you please state for the record that there are no adults 18 or older present in the room with you?
There are no adults 18 or older present in the room with me.
Thank you. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of the public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreters, Anna Cruz and Kimberly Larios, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask speakers to be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Oh.
Is there a second?
Oh, I second.
Thank you. There is a motion to approve the agenda made by Trustee O'Neill and a second by Trustee Arias. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Arias,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard,
Aye.
Ms. Love,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill.
The motion has been approved 6-0. Item 2 is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the San Mateo County Office of Education website and board docs, and on the table outside the boardroom in English and Spanish. For speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreter, Ms. Cruz or Ms. Larios, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the County Board to refer matters raised in this forum to the superintendent for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Superintendent Chavez, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting for topics not on the approved agenda?
None were submitted.
Thank you. Speakers are invited to make live comment and will have 3 minutes to speak. Please keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raise hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Superintendent Chavez. Superintendent Chavez, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time for topics not on the approved agenda?
I do not see any raised hands.
Thank you. Members of the public may also provide live comment in person. Superintendent Chavez, are there any submitted cards for topics not on the approved agenda?
Yes, we do have one card from Dr. Lauren Sneed.
Good evening, Vice President Gerard, esteemed members of the board, Superintendent Chavez, and members of the public. My name is Dr. Lauren Sneed, and I am honored to share that I have been elected as the new president of San Mateo County Educators Association. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve both as an academic school counselor for SMCOE's Court and Community School programs, and now in this leadership role representing our dedicated certificated staff. Throughout my more than 3 decades with San Mateo County Office of Education, I have had the privilege to serve in multiple capacities in support of students, families, and educational communities. I hold a Bachelor's of Science, a Master's of Science, and a doctorate in educational leadership with an emphasis on justice, equity, and research focused on educational experiences of people of color in the carceral system. I'm excited to work alongside our newly elected board, who are highly skilled and credentialed professionals that are committed to providing quality education, meaningful resources, and supportive learning environments for students and families throughout our county. Together, we represent educators and service providers who are directly working with kids. So I represent line staff. I acknowledge that we work in cross agencies as well as cross departments, and we appreciate the certificated staffs that support us, such as Anna Soda and Maria Sanchez, that have been exceptional in providing service with me in the Student Support Services team as an example. As we look ahead, I hope that we can foster a stable, collaborative, healthy environment that will be built on consistent school leadership and is focused on supporting both our employees and our students. And by working together, we will strengthen our organization, build positive relationships, and create opportunities that help all our students thrive. I look forward to partnering with you in service to our schools and communities. Thank you for your time, and I wish everyone a productive and great meeting.
Thank you. Public comment addressing a specific agenda item will be heard after the board's discussion on the item. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raise hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, submit a card in advance of the item. Cards can be found on the table outside of the boardroom and given to a staff member when completed. For item 3A, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2026 special board meeting governance workshop as presented? Is there a
So
second?
moved.
There is a motion made to approve the meetings of the May 13th special board meeting governance workshop made by Trustee O'Neill and a second by Trustee. Who is the second? I'm sorry. Susan?
I think they both moved. I don't think we have a second. Is there?
Do we have the second?
I second.
I second it.
Okay.
Oh,
By Arias, thank you. Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro?
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Ms. Arias?
aye.
Ms. Bonini?
Aye.
Ms. Gerard?
Aye.
Ms. Love?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill?
The motion passes with a vote of 6-0, and the minutes of the May 13th, 2026 special board meeting governance workshop have been approved. Item 4A is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Trustee Bonini and a second by Trustee Love. Is there any further discussion? May I please have a roll call vote?
Miss Alvaro,
Aye.
Miss Arias,
Aye.
Miss Benini,
Aye.
Miss Gerard,
Aye.
Miss Love,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill.
The motion passes with a vote of 6-0, and the consent agenda has been approved. For item 5A, Sarah Notch, Executive Director, Educational Innovations, Educational Services Division, will highlight a few aspects of the San Mateo County Office of Education's 2026-2027 proposed local control and accountability plan. Executive Director Notch.
Good evening, Board Vice President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent Chavez. I'm happy to be back with you to present the proposed LCAP for 2026-27. And I wanted to start with a quick review of the LCAP components, including a reminder about what's different for county offices as opposed to district LCAPs. So the first several bullets are exactly the same for districts and counties. We have general information about our programs. We reflect on our successes and things that were maybe anticipated or unanticipated challenges, and we engage our partners. If you look at the image on the right, there's 8 state priorities. We have conditions of learning, student outcomes, and engagement. And there are 2 of those conditions of learning that are added for county office LCAPs, and that's the supporting expelled and foster youth. But like with districts, we also have academic goals, social, emotional, behavioral, as well as college and career. And then finally, we list all of our expenditures and funding sources. A quick note about engaging educational partners. We recognize, as I shared the last time that I presented about the LCAP, that we have some gaps in engaging all of our partners deeply and meaningfully. And so engaging our families and caregivers and including them more as part of the development of an LCAP is an absolute priority. And so that'll be something that the administrative team is looking into next year about how we can do that better and more consistently. For all of our other partners, we really truly do take what they share into consideration, and it is our North Star for developing the LCAP. So as it says in the last paragraph, it's not just about a compliance document and checking boxes for us. If we don't listen to our partners, our students, our educators, our families, and really think through what is needed, then we're not going to have a successful LCAP. And so we just wanted to give this reassurance statement that the feedback that is given, including the board's feedback, is taken very seriously, and you'll see that reflected later on. So you have the entire LCAP in your board packet. I did want to make a note because I remember this was a little bit confusing last year too. The packet numbers the pages out of 105, but you only have pages that go up to 70 something. The rest of the pages are all instructions for how to complete the LCAP documents. So we left those out, but the entire LCAP is there for you. But for the presentation today, I kind of wanted to do a little bite-sized summary of our progress on each of our goals and then how we actioned the feedback that we've been given from our educational partners and changes that are being made to our proposed LCAP for next year. So goal 1 is around instructional support and academic achievement. And we are in year 2 of our 3-year LCAP. So next year, in addition to implementing the LCAP that's adopted by the board, we will also be in a full rewrite process, marking out 3 more years of a plan for implementation. So far in year 2, some of the highlights for goal 1, 97% of our high school students had a GPA higher than 2.0. We increased A through G credits by student by 64% at Gateway when we compare year over year, and 46% at Hillcrest for A through G credits year over year. Some other key progress areas, We also had 86% of our long-term students at Gateway accruing over 25 A through G credits, which is very close to our 90% target. And 70% of Hillcrest long-term students earning 25 or more credits, which is nearly double from last year. And the reason we utilize long-term students for these measurements is, as you know, we have a lot of turnover and transition in our programs. And so to really get meaningful data from an LCAP perspective, we look at students who have been with us for 90 or more days across all of our programs. We also were able to close the achievement gap with English learner students at Canyon Oaks and reduce by 24 percentage points at Hillcrest. We still have some ongoing challenges, and it's not news to you, hopefully, because we've been sharing them kind of along the way this year at the mid-year update and our last board presentation. But fidelity of implementation and monitoring and support for our teams to be able to carry this heavy lift is still an area where we know we can do better. And so there are specific LCAP metrics and actions that we just weren't able to get data on, and that's reflected in the reporting of all of the metrics and actions in the full packet. Goal 2 is around school climate, social emotional learning, and positive behavior intervention and supports, or SEL and PBIS. For the second consecutive year, we had 0 expulsions. We reduced the Gateway suspension rate by 12.6%, and we had 15% of our staff engaging in average PBIS, positive behavior intervention and supports recognition with our students. Canyon Oaks and Hillcrest had 0 suspensions this year. Gateway improved from 47.6% to 35%. One thing that I wanted to mention specifically, and I took a note of it, is that over the course of the year, all of the suspensions that have been recorded have been across 5 students and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 incidents. And so that is important to consider when we think about our percentage rates with such a small population. We piloted the social emotional learning curriculum at Hillcrest in the 4th quarter, and we're planning a system-wide rollout next year. And we also had really consistent use of the student support forums, which is a positive change from last year. And Gateway launched their behavior expectation matrix. Ongoing challenges, we weren't able to meet the target of monthly campus events. We did not have administration of some of the staff surveys that are listed in the LCAP. We did have an administration of an LCAP feedback survey, but there were some other surveys that were mentioned in the metrics that did not get administered. And we didn't have full fidelity in our PDSA, or Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles. It happened once. And so areas where we're going to have a continued focus in year 3, and also as part of that full rewrite process, determine what were the barriers to implementation? Are they going to be ongoing barriers? Should we be looking at doing something differently? That'll all be discussion that the team's engaging in with your help next year. Goal 3 is around career and technical education. We had 100% of our students enrolled in at least one career technical education course, and almost 50% of our students at Hillcrest. And that's not just long-term, that's all of our students over the full year of enrollment. And I wanted to point out graduation rate. So I recall last year when we were having a very similar conversation about the 25-26 LCAP, there were some questions about how graduation rate is calculated and who is included. And the reality of our graduation rate is that any of the students who are with us, and this is the same with dropout rate, if they don't continue to enroll somewhere, and or even if they enroll and they don't get their diploma, it's a ding on our measurements. And so the 100% is of every single senior across all of our programs who was enrolled in our programs at the end of the year, 100% of them walked. And so we didn't have any seniors who were who fell off track for graduation or weren't eligible for graduation. So those within our system at the time of graduation, every single person walked. And since Dr. Sneed's in the room, I have to give a tremendous amount of credit to all of her work in supporting the students and all of the educators. Because for some, I know it was down to the wire. For a few, maybe. Yes, we're getting nods. So that's just a testament to the dedication of our team to really help provide them everything they needed to achieve that milestone. Commissioner O'Neill? Or
All CTE courses maintain A to G alignment. Can you explain A to G?
Yes, so A to G is for the UC and CSU schools. In order to be eligible after graduation, you have to have A through G graduation, and the letters correspond to the different subject areas. In order for those subjects or those courses to be considered A through G approved, you have to apply in a portal. So you have to upload your syllabus and show everything that you're going to teach in that course, and then it's approved by the UC and CSU systems. And so our CTE courses were approved as A through G eligible coursework for those classes. Of course. Let's see, some other highlights. So Cafe CTE work experience pilot. So one of the opportunities we had this year was to bring back students who had taken a CTE course at Hillcrest before and have them be student leaders and mentors in the class supporting first-timers in that course. And it was phenomenal and really successful, and seeing our students step up and support their peers was just great to witness. And so we're going to try to expand that. We have to get creative about work experience in Hillcrest because we don't have as many options for competitive integrated employment outside of the facility. So that was a great first step. And we also improved attendance at Canyon Oaks and Gateway and had a declining in our chronic absenteeism. One thing that remains a challenge is finding a meaningful way to expand CTE over to Canyon Oaks as a therapeutic setting. They only have academics during the first portion of their day, and the afternoon is reserved for therapeutic interventions and programming. And so figuring out how to change the way that we're looking at CTE coursework with half a day and what that might look like is something the team has been thinking through and is included in some of our CTE grants as the next kind of expansion and measurement of our success. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to come up with, but I know they've been thinking through a lot of different configurations, and we'll of course be working with BHRS, our partners at Canyon Oaks, in that process. And then finally, goal 4 of supporting expelled and foster youth. These are the 2 conditions of learning that are added for county office LCAPs. So we had 100% of expelled seniors graduate. We had an 8.6 reduction in chronic absenteeism with our foster youth, and 100% response rate for juvenile court and child welfare record requests. Some other key highlights. We only had 2 expelled seniors, but they both graduated this year in school programs. 67% of our foster youth high school students, 4 out of 6, remain on track for graduation with their cohort. So those would be 9th through 11th graders this year. We maintained 100% compliance with all of the records requests and document transfers. And this also includes our county-facing foster youth support, the Foster Youth FYCSP, Foster Youth Coordinating Support Program. Yes. So the work that Executive Director Arbizu's team does, district facing, so they also had 100% compliance rate. And our foster youth liaison team that is all county facing supported 100% of our school mobility, communication, and student support inquiries. So when we know that students are transitioning between school placements and districts, and then also when there's an outreach from a district for some support, 100% of those needs were met swiftly and effectively. Trustee O'Neill?
Looking at it, you have an 8.6% reduction in fiscal year chronic absenteeism rate. So what was the absenteeism rate? Was it like 100% and now we're down to 91 or?
I can look, and apologies for the abbreviation. FY is foster youth in this case, but let me look. I have the LCAP with me for just this reason at the, let's see, that one is chronic absenteeism. I just have to find the right metric. Sorry, I'm scanning. Okay, so it looks like the previous percentage was 28.6%. And so this year we're at 20%.
Okay, so that means 80% of the kids are coming to school and 20% are, okay.
Correct.
How does that compare to other counties?
Oh, I don't know. I would have to look into that, but I'm happy to do it.
No, I was just, is this an outlier in San Mateo County or is this 20% actually really good compared to 57 other counties,
I would have to look at some other LCAPs to know. I'm not quite sure.
I would just be curious to
Me
see,
too.
20%, is that really, really good? Or like everybody else is at 1 or 2% and then trying to find out what they're doing that makes it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And this is within our SMCOE school program. So again, our population size, 1 or 2 students can swing it
Yeah.
pretty dramatically. But I would be curious about that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. The ongoing challenge that we have with Goal 4 is when we're looking at our countywide work, so that's the district-facing work that Executive Director Arbizu's team is doing. It's difficult to measure more traditional things like graduation rate or credit accrual or things that we typically see within school programs as measurements with districts because it's not something that they have direct impact on. They're looking at transition between programs. They're looking at support responses, records transfers, consultation on difficult cases, but they're not doing anything directly to impact the credit accrual outside of advisory support. And so when we're thinking about what's within their purview and how do we want to have some meaningful measurements for the district-facing work, that's something I don't think we've quite dialed into yet. So happy to take any feedback that you have, and I know the team will be looking into this in the full rewrite year for next year. And our new and/or renewed areas of focus, this is where you'll see some of the areas of feedback that you gave, as well as our other partners. We really, really are focusing on an increase in family and caregiver engagement next year. We have to figure that out. Sorry, that's my son calling me, so it breaks through the do not disturb. We are adding additional literacy personnel. Which we've heard is a priority for you. It's a priority for us as well. And so there will be a new position that's added to support literacy across court and community schools. We're also going to increase our analysis of transition support opportunities. We've heard that we're doing great things, but we may not be doing everything that we need to do, and we may still have some holes that aren't filled. So both looking at what can we do directly from our positions, as well as how can we better closely coordinate with our partners is an area of renewed focus for next year. We also really want to look at our mechanisms for monitoring and measuring the work that we're doing, because we know the work is happening, but if we can't capture it, we can't report it. And so anecdotal measurements are only so valuable when it comes to the LCAP. And so we really want to figure out how we can do a better job with that. And then there's several key metrics where you'll see we have highlighted that we were unable to measure, and so we haven't been able to really talk about how it's been addressed. And so we want to make sure we do that next year. And then ensure that strong adherence to data collection to inform our rewrite. We want to get it as close to perfect as possible on the first try, with room, of course, for adjustments as the data informs. But we want our 3-year rewrite to be really driven by a deep data dive on what's working, what's not, what needs to be changed, what's missing, et cetera. And then finally, our expenditures and funding sources. You'll get a deeper dive from our business team on this later, but to break it down, I have percentages of how we're spending our money. So most of it you can see is going to staff. We have 62.1% on certificated and 22.2% on classified. We have 7.4% on independent contractors, 8.4% in materials and supplies, and that comes out to almost $3.5 million for the full court and community school budget. And the graphic on the left, we really look at our funding sources, develop our budget priorities, and those go directly into our LCAP investments. And it's noted in every single action how we're contributing funds to each of those actions. And then our job is to measure the impact and make sure that we're maximizing the opportunity of our funding in service of student success. So with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that report, and thank you to all the staff. It was wonderful to be at graduations, and thanks to all the staff who got our students there. It was wonderful to talk to them. They were full of optimism, so I think that's a wonderful thing. I did have a couple questions about the LCAP. One had to do with graduation, and so I'm just going to start there because you did mention it, so maybe I was reading it wrong, where it said 52.2% students graduated this year. Is this getting at what you were talking about?
Yes, so that's how we have to measure it for LCAP for the state, because it takes into consideration all of our students that we've had throughout the year. But to kind of show you the difference of reporting for LCAP's purposes and then reporting for you, everyone that we had as a senior at the time of graduation was able to graduate.
Okay, thank you. Another theme that I saw throughout this was the inability to collect data. I also saw things like, I think it was mentioned under 2.5, like $244,000 for data collection, but that's on top of 200 and something last year where we basically said it didn't work. So what's going to happen now? Because like we don't have the staff, so we couldn't do this. This one didn't work. We don't have this information. Yet throughout we're talking about data-driven decision-making. And yet it's somewhat transparent in the report that we're not actually doing that, but we're spending a lot of money on it. So one, sort of what's the plan for actually getting there?
Thank you for asking that. I believe, I'm almost positive, I don't have the full LCAP view from my screen here right now, but my belief is that that $244,000 is mostly staff costs. So it's not necessarily investing in a data collection system or something that is going to help us measure. It's more about the people and the implementation. And so really we just have to make sure that the staff are supported in knowing what we have to measure for the LCAP, that it remains something that they're fully aware of, that everything that we're doing is sort of leading into those LCAP measurements, and that we're doing it with fidelity and consistently. And we just haven't had that over the past 2 years. So one of the things that we were doing in response is the reorganization of school programs leadership, rather than having myself as the executive director and Dr. Jimenez as the director, and we're kind of bouncing between all of the programs. We've focused Dr. Jimenez as a director for court and community school programs, and that's his only charge. And not to say that it's not a big lift, it is, but it allows for consistency and focus rather than us all having little pieces of things. And then I'll be the director for Special Services Center and the Ann Campbell Center. So that's one actionable thing that we're doing to try something different to allow us to be in a little bit closer to the work and help support that consistent implementation if there are barriers that are being experienced by the staff.
Okay, a couple more. Just another question I had to do with credit recovery at Hillcrest. The plan sets a target of 90% for long-term credit deficient students at Hillcrest to successfully meet their credit recovery goals. Given that the most recent one dropped to 34.6%, I think that's what the plan says now. How are we going to bridge that gap to get to 90%?
Can you tell me exactly which metric that is so I can take a peek?
Credit recovery, I didn't write the number down.
I can look too.
Oh, where am I? I did this online, so
No, of course. Let me see.
So that's
Okay,
credit.
1.14.
Yeah, I think it's 1 point something. 'Cause it's-
Okay, so let me just take a quick look and look at this. Yes, page 23.
23,
Thank
yeah.
you. Yes, so we dropped by 35.4 percentage points. Sorry, I'm reading through all of it just to make sure I'm.
Our
Looking-
baseline had been 67%.
In 23, 24,
The
yeah.
baseline, and then, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hillcrest, I think it was 70% in the outcome for year one, and now it's
Yes, and now it's,
34.6.
it is,
So
yes.
we're trying to get to 90, so something's going to have to give, and I don't know what that is, and so I'm curious how you're going to get to that point.
Yeah, one of the things that I spoke to Associate Superintendent Schaus about was how much of a full rewrite do we want to do this year, knowing that we're going to a full rewrite next year? Or do we want to try to keep the targets the same, knowing we haven't been able to fully implement some of the actions that are in the LCAP, and see if we can do a better job of getting, closer approximations? If this were an IEP, I would have adjusted the target, looking at the data and saying, recovering from, 34.6% up to 90% is probably not a realistic target. But we also know that there are some elements of the LCAP, we believe, that if they are implemented consistently and with fidelity, pardon the tongue tie, such as PDSA cycles and adjustments monthly for the individual learning plans. If we can catch things and act on them in a data-driven way earlier, then we think we might have a better chance of improving that. But if we don't, then that will be something that the team looks at next year for the full rewrite, is adjusting the baseline or adjusting how we're helping adjusting the target or adjusting how we're helping students achieve that target.
I hope it's the latter of those two,
Me
not
too.
former. That's it for me for now. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. Thank you for this report, Ms. Sach, and thank you. Dr. Sneed is still in the room, I think.
She
And
is.
yes, great to have you. You've done such great work for the last 3 decades that I've known you. So I'm really excited to see your fingerprints all over things. Sarah, I had a question about the CTE up at Hillcrest, the Cafe CTE. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, one of our CTE master classes, so that's the 3-week course that students do, was a repeat of a course that we had done before. And so we looked at the students who had taken the course, including non-minors, and looking at who would be available to participate as a mentor in that program to students who were first taking it. And so they had extra responsibilities. They weren't completing the projects themselves, but they were supporting the students. They were doing some teaching and presenting some of their knowledge and really working with the students. And so that was great.
I got it. You had explained that, but the cafe part threw me.
Yes.
The reason I'm asking specifically about that is when I was volunteering up at Glenwood for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, we had 2 CTE, we didn't call them CTE back then, but we had 2 CTE programs that we were able to do even with the incarcerated boys up at Glenwood. And one was a culinary arts program where they actually worked in the kitchen. And they had to, of course, earn the right to handle some of the equipment, but they worked in the kitchen and they helped with some of the meal prep. And the other was, and they actually got a certificate when they got done. They actually had some training in working in kitchens. And the other one was a partnership, which I just thought was wonderful, with Habitat for Humanity. And part of that took place off-site, which is not going to be possible with the Hillcrest kids while they're incarcerated. But part of it took place in the classroom. We actually had someone from Habitat come in, I think it was once a week, and teach a class on basically construction math and the basics of that sort of thing. And then the boys, again, they had to earn the right to do it, but they went off and actually worked on homes for people, the Habitat homes. And some of them, once they were, the nice thing about Glenwood is that we often had kids for a minimum of a school year. So you could do different things with them. But part of what they earned was the right to continue with Habitat as volunteers, but they got credit also for it after they had left us and gone back to the community schools or their public schools. So I just throwing that out as 2 interesting ideas that really were successful with the boys at Glenwood. They were really engaged with both of those things.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I did not know about the Habitat for Humanity connection. That is phenomenal. And we've done culinary before. I'm sure we'll do it again. And one of the things when we do run that course is that our students are Safe Serve certified, so they get their food handler's license. And we also create or help them create e-portfolios that only go live once they've left. But it has, almost like a resume of skills that they've learned, and certifications that they've earned to kind of help them in their next steps. But I would love to explore more about how we can look at a Habitat partnership or something like that, because I know construction and construction management is definitely an interest for some of our students that they've shared. So thank you.
It was also phenomenal to watch them get that excited about math.
I was just thinking that too. When that becomes relevant and meaningful, yeah, absolute game changer. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Benini.
Thank you for the presentation. I want to start with just a comment about the literacy focus, because of course, I'm very passionate about that. And I know we've expressed that from our board, and we gave you feedback in the LCAP liaison process for, on behalf of the board. So thank you for that. And then we know that I think that that's tied to the work that the pilot with OICR. So I have a couple questions just about how having another person is good, right? Having a specialist or whatever that title will be. But I'm curious if there will be any opportunities and whether the budget and the plan kind of allows for opportunities for other staff to be involved in that training, because I was able to attend the OICR presentation that they did this week. And they talked a lot about their learnings of the pilot. They highlighted our county, which was fantastic. And they talked about what they want to do for leaders and for educators who obviously were already part of the pilot, but it was deepening understanding of science of reading exploring best practices for working with adolescent learners. And we've been talking about all of these things, right? They have this, and I'm sure you have access to this presentation, but I can share it. Developing expertise in trauma-informed practices, and they have kind of planning going forward. And so I guess my question is, are you considering whether whoever that person is, plus other staff, would be able to be involved in these types of endeavors? Also, they're looking at a youth justice literacy certificate, all of these amazing things, right? Where we could tag that on to some of our our staff that's there. I don't know what their bandwidth is, but that's my first question. Is there talk about that yet, or can there be?
As far as, is there talk about that yet? I'm not sure, because this is the part of the year where we've sort of done a handoff between myself and Dr. Jimenez. I know Dr. Jimenez and Associate Superintendent Schaus have been in very detailed conversation about kind of this structure. From working within the program and working with Associate Superintendent Schaus for so many years, I know that her default is to make sure that things aren't person dependent. And if we just have a literacy person doing literacy, we're not doing it well. And so the idea is always to build capacity, expand training, making sure that these things are rooted throughout instruction and not just happening when the literacy personnel is in the room. So I would venture a pretty good guess, I think, that yes, that will be the focus in how they roll that out and develop those kind of procedures.
Thank you for that.
Can I just add
Oh,
on
of
that?
course.
And what comes to mind also is that we want to make sure that as to your point, to develop that person in the science of reading, we offer those trainings to our districts, to our teachers within our districts. So inviting them in, and not just this person, but the teaching staff at the at Cork Community, so that they would be very welcome to join.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have a couple other questions, but I just wanted to share, just for the sake of really good work, I wanted to share part of, not the entire quote, but a quote from one of our students that was included in this OICR presentation, which was regarding the pilot and the reading instruction, which was, thank you for this. I have been really needing this, but my IEP says I have to write essays. But this is what I need. Sorry for the student actually said something said, sorry for what I said, but this is what I need. Thank you for this. Oh. So that was just so heartwarming when I saw that. And I know we've been talking about it forever, but thank you. So that was my focus, my question about literacy. And then I wanted to ask about sort of what Trustee Love raised around, we weren't able to gather the data, and it's obviously there, and you've raised it. We don't have the baseline data. We don't know the growth. And I know we talked about a lot of it in our liaison check-ins in terms of the individual learning plans, how that, you want to get that off the ground. But I'm also curious whether there's been further exploration of how we can get that baseline data. And I know we talked about potentially trying to grasp it from a prior CASP test or something like that the students might have from earlier in their educational journey. So I'm just curious if you've put some thought into that, or if that's part of the reframing around that, because I see, implementation of the metrics, getting the metrics is here, but I'm just curious if you can share a few more details. And those are just things I remembered from our conversation. So
Absolutely. I'll speak to the CASP thing first. So the measuring the growth in individual students from 8th grade to 11th grade was the best way that we could come up with for looking at individual growth time over time. What we have encountered is that sometimes, and more often than not, either the 8th grade testing results are not available to us, or the students didn't take the 8th grade test. And so valiant effort, I think, creative thinking, but we need to figure out a better way to make that CASP measurement meaningful, because it is a requirement in our LCAP. And I think, looking at sort of the implementation of everything with the staffing constraints that we've encountered over the past 2 years. It has been such a dedicated and heavy lift that our teachers have been taking on, and I know each of them care so deeply, all of our educators and educational staff, not just the teachers. But it's hard when we don't have that consistent leadership thread and someone kind of overseeing and making sure that the work moves forward. So it is my sincere hope that this reorganization of the administration of our school programs will help that tremendously. And I know we always hope for consistent, stable staffing, but they're going to have to look at that really closely in the full rewrite. And my hope is that if they get through a quarter and things aren't going well, that they'll think creatively about, okay, we need to measure this year's LCAP data, the 25 or 26, 27, and we need to make sure that we are gathering information that will help inform the full rewrite. And so I know that's something that Dr. Jimenez and I have talked about how do you do both and do it meaningfully. But I can't tell you for certain exactly what their plans are for that. But I know that you'll have lots of opportunity to hear from Dr. Jimenez once the school year gets underway around that.
And that's helpful. And I understand the focus on, we need to do the rewrite. Maybe for better or for worse, my focus is on what are the students,
Yes.
experiencing in that moment.
Yes.
Even now or
Mhm.
the start of the school year. And so I guess just to ask it in another way, and maybe it goes into further conversations, is what else is needed? Those are the questions we were asking in our committees
Mhm.
this year, right? What do you actually need to, as a board, we're advocating for budget or for whatever we can do here, right? And so the question is, if there aren't enough staff to gather the data, or there's not a plan to do it, or which test to use, or how to measure that, whatever, maybe that's another question. What else is needed?
Mhm.
Is it not an entirely a full FTE, but is it another department that maybe can push in to help with those things? I'm just throwing it out there
Mhm.
because it seems possible with the number of students that we have, and maybe we'll have more, in the coming year, but it seems like we have enough resources that we could have somebody there maybe assisting the teachers in doing that gathering. That's my hope, because I haven't seen any measurable data of growth since I've been sitting here in this chair.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit difficult to know we don't know if maybe there is. And then that kind of leads into my final question is, we have this higher GPA note, and then I know there was a policy put in place that we wouldn't have Ds or Fs, right? And so I don't know how much maybe it helps from a student perspective of success and maybe self-esteem and those types of things, but in some respects, it's not matching up, right? Because if we're not, we don't know what that growth looks like, and maybe it's inflated. So I'm not sure the policy or the rationale behind that, but those are questions that I have around it. So I don't know if that's more just comments, but if you have any thoughts on that, and then.
I do. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's honestly not something that we looked at as an additional variable that could have impacted that growth. And so it leads me to a lot of question marks that I would want to sort of dig into deeper so that we can make sure that we're getting, growth in GPA is great, but it's not necessarily maybe an apples to apples comparison, or maybe it is. I would really have to look at it with that D to F policy, or no Ds and Fs policy. But thank you for bringing that up, because it honestly didn't cross my mind. So I appreciate the spotting that. And then as far as what do we need, I think we need consistency. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, finish your thought. I was just wanted to add.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, what comes to mind, and this is maybe something that we can debrief with Chris Schaus, yourself, and the team, is we have a data analyst team in-house. We have the CLA that I think this is a good opportunity to bring their expertise into the conversation, and what is it that we can be looking at from their lens that it provides that baseline data, that provides that so that we can measure growth. And and they might see it as data analysts in a different way than we do as the implementers of programs. So I'm suggesting that we should do that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Going to what we need, if I think about kind of all the different potential and, for lack of a better word, fail points in our implementation. Here's one kind of through line example with individual learning plans. The original idea when we designed this and wrote this 3-year LCAP was that every teacher would have an advisory period. That happened. Every teacher has an advisory period. What we wanted that advisory period to be was coaching, support, credit recovery, monitoring, almost serving as a little mini caseload where each advisory teacher would develop and monitor the individual learning plans for the students in their advisory. Now, this is easier to do in one way with Gateway and Canyon Oaks because that's a more consistent population throughout the year, at least semester-wise. More difficult to do with Hillcrest. But the idea was at any given time, the students in their advisory would be on their caseload, quote unquote. And because they would have that continuous advisory mentor who would get to know them really well, build relationships with them really well, have the opportunity and the time to do that because they're not implementing curriculum during that period, then every month they would bring data on the ILP goals and supports, and we would go through that PDSA cycle and we would make adjustments. What has happened for a variety of reasons is the ILPs are not typically developed by the advisory teachers. We've had our TOSA develop some. We've had our assistant principal develop some. I'm sure Dr. Sneed has developed some. And so the idea of that catch of a group of students and really kind of following them hasn't happened. And part of the reason why it hasn't happened, I think, is just logistical with, teachers being out or administrative turnover, things like that. But if we don't have that happening, and it's up to a handful of people who are not with the students all the time to develop the ILPs, and it doesn't have the same amount of meaning if you're not developing it and monitoring it, then it becomes procedural. And it becomes something that we're doing because we know that this is the right thing to do. And so we have the what, but we don't have the now what. And I think part of what we believe will help with the more consistent implementation and meaningful implementation of this is greater oversight and support from an administrator perspective. And so I'm hoping that Dr. Jimenez, being based at Court and Community, can help the administrative team that comes in, can be a second pair of eyes, can be historical memory keeping, and refine procedures that will allow us to do a better job. Because it's not that the team doesn't want to do it. It's not that the teachers aren't caring and they're doing things in a million different ways that could be formalized, but we just haven't gotten to that formality.
Do you think in the structuring of the days or the weeks that you have the ability to give more time to do that, more meeting time? I'm not suggesting, like a PLC, but like a time when you designate that your staff is meeting for that purpose, because in my experience, that's what's needed. I've participated in that, and there's no other time to do it. Not even if you have a free period to do it. It's a collaborative effort because more than one person is interacting with the student. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. And we've dipped our toe into that a little bit. I'm going to say one toe because it's only been one so far. But we have had, for example, we've had our RSP position working with some of the teachers in particular courses, and we made sure that they had common planning time so that if they wanted to collaborate together, that would be possible. I think that's not possible for everybody, of course, and you're right. The students see all of the teachers. And that was really the idea behind those monthly data review cycles, so that we could focus on a group of students and say, you know, what are you seeing in your class? This is what I'm seeing. What do we think would work? And we build a hypothesis and we test it, and we keep it consistent, because that ILP, while in theory, you know, would be developed in the advisory class by that advisory teacher, it's being implemented across every single class. And so we need to make sure that we build in that time for the collaboration and the brain trust, right? We all see different pieces and different perspectives, and things that are working in one class could work in others, and we just might not know it.
Thank you for the conversation about it and the thoughts, because I
course.
think it's, I think that we have a lot of room to grow, but I think we can do it. So
I do
I'm
too.
excited for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Love?
I just want to second this idea of Superintendent Chavez, that the people in this building need to be working for our school programs. You know, the art folks need to be working in the art program, and the communications need to be working on the graduation documents and things that are handed out. And this is the staff that's here to serve the schools. And it just became, you kind of captured it, right? That why is this data such a problem when we have so many professionals? And so you linked it, and I hope to see more of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Arias?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation today. I think it's exciting to see numbers going up and all the work that everybody is doing. Definitely want to thank also Dr. Sneed. Thank you. Thank you for all the work and the years she's been there. I think, you know, one of the things that all the conversations and some of my questions were answered, but one of the things that I would like just to bring to the space is to remember the why, right? A lot of the times we're discussing how we're going to do it, what do we need and all that, but I just want to bring this up, that why are we doing this, right? So at the end of the day, for me, or what I believe, the why is the students. How are we helping them? And so I appreciate that in your area of new and renew areas of focus, you have increased analysis of transition to support opportunities, because we might be able to support them within to the best ability that there is, but what happens after, especially for our students at Hillcrest, right? What are we doing so that those transitions and those plans that you were talking about are really individualized, and we're making a difference in their life as they exit and as they transition and really become part of our community and society. So the why is very important, because that's going to give us a lot of motivation to continue to do this work, right? And then another point I wanted to really thank you is to increase family and caregiver engagement. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that is, to me, if we're going to support students, you can't isolate the student from the family or caregivers. You have to think more as a holistic approach, where the student continues to go back home, right, between home and school. So if that partnership is not there, and I understand previously and other times the comments is, you know, they're not coming or they're not participating, or it's hard to engage. But I really that would be one of my, at least I know that it will make a difference in the partnerships that you're talking about. How are we going to do it? Or having the understanding or where these families come from. The student is reflecting, right, with behaviors, they're communicating what's happening at home. Are we asking them? Are we saying, are you okay? I'm here for you. Do you need supports? What do you need, student, right, individually? So I appreciate that, seeing that. So I really hope that there are ways that that come up in ideas and out of the box kind of thinking, you know, being innovative about how we're going to bring the families in, because it's not necessarily that they have to be on campus, right? But how are we approaching being connected with the family and understanding why the student is going through what we see in the school, right? So, but again, thank you for all the information today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I couldn't agree more. As an educator and a mama, it's really, really important. And I do want to share one thing that is not reflected in the LCAP, because the LCAP measurements are about caregivers and families engaging in events and on campus. And hearing you say it doesn't have to be that reminded me of this, that our staff do have great communication with families. Our bilingual family counselor is making calls. Dr. Sneed's making calls. I've had the opportunity to be on campus during some disciplinary events that were unexpected, and families coming to pick up their kids and hearing, sitting in on the meeting that the administration would have with the family. There was always a start with like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? How can we help? What are you seeing? I've heard parents say, thank you for the way that you're handling this. So we know they're connected. And so I think it's just figuring out, what does involvement mean and what are the other opportunities for that? And it might not be on campus events. That might be the wrong target. So, but yeah.
And I appreciate you making that distinction, because engagement is exactly what you said. Just being connected, but involvement would mean that you bring them into the table and ask them, how do we support better, right? What programs, what events, what is it that within the curriculum and what's happened inside the classroom, right? What they can be involved in, right? So that's the difference between involvement and engagement. So I appreciate that distinction.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any comments from the public?
We have a raised hand on.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Blanco, you may speak. You may need to unmute. Ms. Blanco? She may not, she may have stepped away.
There she is.
There she is. Ms. Blanco, you may speak. You're breaking up.
No, we can't understand.
You want to try again, Ms. Blanco? Yeah, you're not coming through.
Oh, what the heck?
Can you try again? Yeah, looks like we have technical difficulties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe.
We can try later, Ms. Blanco, if you like, or send us a written text on the chat.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's so helpful to see all this information, and I know it's a tremendous amount of work to get us all the information as well. But what a difference to be able to read through the packet and really understand what's going on and how it affects all of our students. And I know everyone is doing their best under some pretty extenuating circumstances the last couple of years. But one thing I do want to comment on, which really pertains to the graduations when we're talking about support of the students, was the emphasis that everyone made that they're there for those students, even when they walk out that door, that if they need help, come back, ask, we're here for you. And it just made my heart sing when I heard that, because a lot of these kids, once they walk out that door, aren't going to have the support that they've had while even incarcerated. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for making sure that that message was given out loud and clear at all the graduations that we attended. So thank you. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
There are no further actions to take on this item. For item 5B, the public hearing on the San Mateo County Office of Education's 2026-2027 proposed local control and accountability plan is now open. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? The hearing is now closed. For item 6A, Kevin Baltima, Deputy Superintendent, Business Services Division, and Minette Marino, Executive Director, Internal Businesses Services Division, will provide an overview of the San Mateo County Office of Education's 2026-2027 proposed budget.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Vice President Gerard, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. Kevin and I are here tonight to give you our 26-27 proposed budget presentation. So I'll start with a few slides. So I just want to give you a kind of an overview of the budget development timeline. So in January, our governor provides a proposal for the next fiscal year. In April, as we all know, April 15, our tax deadline. Then comes May. On May 15, the governor provided a May revise for the budget. And from then till now, there are negotiations taking place related to budget items. And then on Monday, it's constitutional deadline for legislature to approve the state budget. And from then till June 27, the governor can do one of the three things. He can approve the budget, line item veto some portions of the budget, or send that back to the legislature. So what's in the May revised budget? So a lot of promising items were on the May revised budget, especially when it comes to the overall state revenues. There was an improvement of about 50 billion overall over the 3 years compared to the 24-25. There is a budget that's balanced for next year and the year after with no deficit. But the LAO office, the Legislative Analyst Office, still warns us of future deficits. Related to the Prop 98 education funding, the statutory COLA is at 2.87%. But as you may have heard, there is a additional discretionary investment that we know now as Super COLA, and that's about 906.7 million additional in LCFF funding. So together with the 2.87, it's about 4.31%. And several purposes of that additional money is to support LEAs in rising cost, mitigate the loss in revenues because of declining enrollment, and as you may have heard, also to fund the proposed new law to extend the pregnancy disability leave to 14 weeks beginning next year, 26-27. There was also a historic investment in special education, increasing the per ADA funding to 1,340. So that's very, very big investment. There is a one-time discretionary block grant of about 5 billion. This is an increase to the proposal from January. The proposal in January was only about 2.1, and now it's at 5 billion. That discretionary Black grant is not in our SMCOE budget yet. We are still need to hear details of that, and we will incorporate that as we hear more details in our interim revisions. Because of the increased revenues, the rainy day fund is required to be funded. But still, the governor proposes a settle up to withhold 3.9 billion from the Prop 98 funding. So from those budgetary assumptions or provisions from the government, we also made assumptions for our own budget. So our LCFF revenue was based on the FICMAT calculator, which incorporates all those items from the governor's proposal. The restricted program revenues were also adjusted for known grants. Of course, position control were updated, including staff changes and vacant positions. Compensation also included multi-year agreements. So we have multi-year agreements with our teachers union, our SMCA, CSEA 887, our classified staff, and with confidential and management groups. That's all already included in the budget for next year. We also included corresponding statutory benefits, retirement contributions to CalPERS, STIRS, unemployment, and workers' comp. Services and supplies were also adjusted for planned service levels, and as well as for inflation based on the CPI index. So next, you may have remember seeing this. These are all the added budget items as they were presented in our board study session last month. A total of 3.3 million, a little over 3 million were added, and these are the details of that. I'm not going to go in mention them one by one, but these were all presented at our board study session. So this amount of 3 million is added and will be is reflected in the budget that you'll see more numbers later on. Other budgets that are not included are the following. So the Rollins Road Educational Program use. We just wanted to emphasize this conversation may need program leaders' guidance in shaping the conversation as to what Rollins Road building can best support the educational programming. And then San Mateo County Educational Foundation is also one of items that we'll need more planning and discussion, as well as the YMCA Camp Jones capital improvements. As I understand, there's still ongoing discussion regarding priorities for capital improvements between staffing and admin housing.
May I just highlight something on the slide specifically? These were generated through the feedback, through the conversation process. We want to capture them here. We don't want to lose sight of them. They're not in the budget, but we will continue to have conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we go into the numbers. So our budget reflects a total revenue both in unrestricted and restricted of about 119, 259, 470. And a big portion of that is coming from our LCFF revenues of about 77 million, followed by funds coming from local revenues, about 30. And then consequently, expenditures are about 125, 266, and 181. So as you can see, the total revenue, total expenditures are more than our revenues. So it reflects a deficit and a change in fund balance of 496 combined, 4 million, about 4 million 100 combined. So that was the income or SACS presentation. We want to show you what you've also been used to presenting is the income statement presentation. As you can see, net of the adder outgo, which is the excess property taxes that we send back to the state. In unrestricted, our real revenue is about 44 million in unrestricted, 31 in restricted, with a total revenues of $76 million. And then in expenditures, combined of 82,277,826, which also brings us to the same total that we saw on the previous slide of about -4 million. So the next slide is just a pie graph presentation of how our total revenues are in terms of percent. As I mentioned earlier, our LCFF makes the most of our total revenues, about 63.5%, followed by local revenues of about 25%. Then state revenues, then a little bit of transfer in, and federal resources. The transfer in is coming from the operationalizing of the interest in our Fund 17 or our savings account. Correspondingly, this is the same pie chart of our presentation of our expenditures as it relates to the percentage of each object components. So the biggest, of course, are staffing between our certificated and classified salaries. And then we also have that big item with adder outgo, that's the excess property tax that we have to send back to the state. And then a couple of services and operating with a total expenditures of $126 million. And you've seen this before. This is just a breakdown of our services or contracted services between our budgets, broken down by resource codes. So in our unrestricted budget, we have, we call it under object 5,000s of about 12 million. In the restricted, there's about 9 million total. And just wanted to highlight, the usual big ticket items in the unrestricted. That's the Outdoor Ed education that represents our contract with YMCA. The ERP financial system, that's the one that we use countywide, although a portion of that is offset by the billing that we do for the portion of the district's billing. And then transportation, that's the contract we have with For Student. Over on the restricted side, in special education, that's also the offset of services. I believe that's between the transportation, so that's the billing between the unrestricted and the billing on the restricted side. And there's also that, transportation services agreement. That's the billing that we do between our school districts. So the next slide just is a comparison of our 25-26 estimated actuals. I just want to make a correction on the first column. It should say 25-26 estimated, comparing to 26-27 original. So we're comparing the differences between what we have now, estimated to close, and then what we have as original budget. So just want to highlight the big difference in LCFF, that's the property tax increase. And as you know, when we get more property tax, there's a corresponding increase in the other outgo, which is the bill we send back to, which is the a portion of it that we need to send back to the state. Then there's a little bit of increase in local revenue, and that's attributed to our investments in county treasury. So mostly it's interest earnings. In expenditures, of course, there's increases in our certificated salaries, classified salaries, and corresponding employee benefits. That's mostly because of the class and comp implementation, as well as the settlements that we've had with our groups. In services, you probably note that there was an increase, and that's the biggest one of it is we had to add election costs for the November election. We have 3 board members with expiring terms, so we added that in the budget. And then, as mentioned before, the excess property tax that we have to send back to the state is also showing an increase. There was a little bit of decrease in the transfers in because 25-26 was the last implementation of our financial ERP system. So that's no longer in the budget. So that created a little bit of decrease in that expense. There's also, however, there are increases in contribution to our other programs, notably to our Fund 12 or early learning programs. So overall, our change in fund balance in 25-26, we're estimating to be $1 million. However, in 26-27, there is a complete shift of that on the other side. Estimated change in fund balance of -$4 million. So now I'll give it to Kevin to continue with the presentation.
So when they link the LCAP to the budget, I think the original idea is that educators would talk to business people. So you're going to watch that in real time. Because it was mentioned earlier that we had a new position for a reading specialist, correct? Did you hear that? I heard that too. So I'm going to go back to slide 6, I think. Here we go. That's not on this list. So I'm told that it is included in the budget, which means my slide here is incorrect. So what we will do, this is a public hearing. We will bring this back for your approval, and we'll make sure that that position is included in the budget and it is also represented on this slide. That's how it's supposed to work, right? Educators talking about education, business people putting numbers into the budget. So that will come back to you. Okay. Minette did all the heavy lifting. I'm going to go back. So this is our gateway budget. And this is looking at 25-26 and then 26-27. You'll note that we have some additional resources in there because it was discussed in our budget subcommittee that, there are additional dollars that are rolling through other than just the restricted. So we tried to capture those. I didn't include the descriptions of those. I think you did receive those via email from the superintendent. So there's some additional dollars that we'll be using, and you'll note that our revenue numbers there because we're using carryover dollars currently in the budget from the prior year. But overall, the Gateway program for 25-26 is about a $1.7 million program, and it decreases in 26-27 as we've seen a decrease in the number of students that we've served. The biggest change is represented in the highlighted green area, where instead of charging what we have prior year at $56,500 per spot, we have adjusted the budget to be a charge equal to the district's LCFF funding per ABA. And those are estimates. So we'll have to work to make sure we get the actual numbers tied to P2. But that really decreases the amount of revenue coming into that program by $466,000. So we're only going to be collecting from districts, if you approve this budget, a little less than $500,000, which then increases our contribution that we're going to make of our unrestricted dollars in the amount of $824,000. Okay. So from a district standpoint, this really should, the amount of money they receive in revenue for that student should be covering the cost that we bill them for. Okay, I'm going to move on. Canyon Oaks budget, I did go back to 22-23 to see kind of a larger trend here, just so you got a sense. That project or program has always been around 800,000. It did get to a high in 24-25 of almost 1.1 million. But again, we charge back, or we receive state dollars for that program. So fairly consistent overall. Looking at the Hillcrest budget, we have seen contributions of unrestricted dollars going back all the way to 22-23. We didn't see that in 23-24 with the use of some one-time dollars. But again, we're seeing contributions in the program in 25-26, and then in this budget, 26-27. Currently, it represents about a little less than $1.3 million program. And then overall, the LCAP budget, again, there's a nice connection to what was talked about earlier. Really, my intent here was to, we talked about some of the accounting work that we do behind the scenes and using the standardized accounting code structure and using goals to capture the LCAP goals as well. So when we ran the report, what the intent was to show that if we run the goals 3571 through 3674, we're capturing all the dollars that are supposed to be in the LCAP. But if you recall, the number you saw earlier was 3.4 million, and I'm only capturing 2.9 million here. The additional dollars are in restricted programs and may not contain the same goal. We will be working to make sure that we can get all of those goals recorded in those resource codes as well. But that explains the difference from what you were showing in the LCAP budget compared to what's being presented here. And this is something we've discussed in our workshop. It's really our attempt to try and match the budget to the strategic plan. There's a much larger spreadsheet here that we aren't showing you in this presentation, but it actually lists every resource code, and it really attempts to tie those dollars into the different goals within the strategic plan. This is kind of a summary of that. And again, it is not a perfect analysis because it's really more of Kevin's view of the world, with some educators kind of weighing in to the extent that they could. But hopefully this is something we can continue to build off of, and we'll be taking that information and pushing it in the 26-27 budget to continue those conversations. And it is noted that there are some things that we do that don't tie to the strategic plan. And that's okay. So looking at our MYP, our assumptions here, we do not include any revenue from leasing Rollins Road. We have a cost of living adjustment, which agrees to the Department of Finance and is included in the LCFF calculation that we use. We have step and column costs estimated at 1.5%. I think we'll get more accurate with that under the new system in the future, but right now we're using kind of a rounding number. STRS and PERS are estimated based on actuals, no increase actually in the STRS over all 3 years. We use a CPI, a consumer price index, for supplies and services. Minette had already mentioned our election costs. We do also increase our insurance liability costs. We've seen increases related to some of the SAM settlements. So those are the sexual assault and molestation settlements that we've seen related to some insurance policies. So we have some increases built in for that. And then any one-time adjustments are made in the future years. So here's the multi-year projection. Minette had already covered that we're expecting a negative change in fund balance for the 26-27 years, about 4 million, noting some of those things are one-time in nature. The election, for example. We see then increased revenues into 27-28, 28-29. Our deficit then is smaller, but it still exists at $2 million in 27-28 and another a little over $2.1 million in 28-29. Then we show all the components of our fund balance, and we start with $20 million. We have a board reserve of 5% plus the economic reserve requirement from the state at 3%, plus we have $1.5 million for potential cash loan to small districts. And we have unrestricted lottery dollars at $834,000. So even with that, even with the deficits at that point, we're still able to make all of those reserve requirements until we get to 28, 29, and we're short almost $800,000. So I would never be one to be a proponent of deficits, but our reserves allow us to do that kind of deficit spending in the general fund and still have substantial reserves. And that doesn't talk about any dollars that we have in other funds as well. So graphically, this is what, I didn't touch it. Okay, we'll look at those. So this shows kind of the graphic picture. If we approve this budget, we'll see the overall reserves go down. But again, in 28, 29, and we always point out year 3 is always a little fuzzy. Year 3 is a little harder to predict, but that's why you see that number bottom. It actually goes down because it's a negative $800,000, right? Still substantial reserves even after that kind of deficit spending. So that, you know, we have other funds. One of them is Fund 40. We've talked about this quite a bit. We worked through this a bit in our workshop and through our subcommittee. But we did start a facility master plan process. We never got all the way through it, but a lot of work was done. And through that, there were noted some critical projects for our school sites. And I want to emphasize our school sites. This isn't for 101 Twin Dolphin. Specifically, bathroom remodel has been talked about for a long period of time. It was included here. We did have the opportunity to go back and talk to a small group of teachers and administrators about the facility master plan list that we received. And they kind of identified another 3.2 million of that list that made sense to them. And we appreciated their input. But then basically we had still about $6.8 million left of other things that were included in the facility master plan process. This still need to be somewhat vetted out, but it incorporated what their view of the world was related to their interviews and conversations with teachers and students and other educators. So ultimately, in conversations with the subcommittee, the idea was that we would address all the critical hardship projects at $13.9 million and place that in the budget. Now, I just want to point out, that doesn't mean that we have a plan exactly. We're going to follow our policy, and that means that, you know, if you approve this budget, we've approved 13.9 million. We will then do an RFP for an architect, the request for proposal. Once we have an architect, you would, by the way, approve that contract, the board. We'd bring that back to the board for approval. And then they would do really the heavy lifting, which is programming. They would actually go out to the school sites. They would meet with educators and with the principals and with parents and talk about, well, okay, so they've talked about critical hardship projects like redoing this parking lot. How does that work? This is what we think might work. And they will draw actual plans based on that input, that programming conversation. Once we have the plans, then we do a request for proposal for contractor. And then you would approve that contract. And then the contract builds what was drawn. So the real work here is the programming conversations when we have an architect on board. But if you approve this budget, we kind of have a green light to move forward with that. We've also added 1.5 million for unidentified items that have been consistently, that has been in the budget the last few years in Fund 40. So conclusions, we do see deficits in all 3 years. Minette mentioned this, a lot of it is related to compensation, the classification and compensation study, which, by the way, we've fully implemented in 2 years, probably unheard of. We're fortunate to be able to do that. This budget actually includes almost all payroll increases for every group but CSA 158. Again, not common that you actually have all your compensation done before the year starts. Ideally, right? I mean, it would be nice if our employees knew what they were going to get paid during the year. It doesn't often work that way in negotiations, but we're really happy it does this year. And then we have those new positions we talked about, the increased contributions to our programs. I would point out, we are already giving ourselves credit for $2.8 million of interest revenue from Fund 17, and that's included in the multi-year projection. And then, although the state budget is better, it doesn't really benefit SMCOE as much in the same way as our school districts. So I just want to note that higher COLA is great, but it doesn't actually bring an influx of a lot more money to us. It helps because we do get kind of a bit of a difference if the COLA is higher, so we do get some new money, but it's not the same as a school district. And the special education funding will go through the SELPA, the Special Education Local Plan Area Allocation. So it will go out to districts. We will continue to provide services, so it will help them pay for those services, but it won't necessarily drive the cost down of our programs. And the discretionary block grant is going to be based on ADA, and the fact is we don't have a lot of students. So we're not going to drive a ton of discretionary block grant dollars for SMCOE specifically. With all of that said, ultimately we have good reserves. We are financially healthy. I would point out, go into deficit spending with our eyes wide open. If that's the direction we're going to go. But based on the input, this is what we are presenting to the board and for public review.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Benini.
Thank you. Thank you for the very clear presentation. I have just a few questions. Thank you for noting the items added. I'm on slide 5, added budget items for the literacy person. Do we know how much that is in the budget? And
I don't. We'll have to get back to you on that one, and we'll call it out because we'll put that position on there and then have a new number.
And will it be funds that come from the general funds, or will it be a state?
Our first question will be, are there any restricted dollars that could pay for something like this? That will be our first question, but absent that, it would probably be out of the general fund as an ongoing. So again, we'll include it as the detail.
Okay, and then also on that page, I know you shared this in the budget study session around the transportation. Initially, it was something like a $200,000, but either way, we're paying for that, and that is for students in our programs, right, that are not currently being transported, like at Gateway.
That's correct. And in our conversations with our vendor who provides our transportation services, they can add that Gateway program specifically without an increased cost. So at first we thought it was going to be on top of, but due to what we're seeing is changes in routing, they think they can fit it in within our current cost structure.
Thank you. And then my question around the Gateway budget is really, well, first, it's appreciation for thinking through how that might look different for districts. So my question based on the estimates is how many students are you including approximately? I know it's an estimate, but I don't know what that looks like. What's the goal maybe of?
Yeah, so the program gets charged based on spots, and historically Sequoia and San Mateo Union High have basically purchased 8 spots each. And then we've had varying 1 to 4 additional, whether that was Cabrillo or Jefferson Union High, typically. Our budget estimates here are based on 17. So 8 from each of the spots plus 1 from Cabrillo is the estimate at this time.
And so I guess my follow-up question was, does it impact the MOU process? It's kind of the same, you're just adjusting the amount. It sounds like.
The maintenance of effort?
The MOU process that you have now.
No,
it's similar, but it's just a different.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to this with Associate Superintendent Schaus. Really, we should be getting these contracts out in like January or February, because we really have a March 15th deadline. Like if they told us we're not going to provide any, service, like we don't want to use your services, well, we would have to do a layoff. And where we are right now is we basically own the staff. And if they don't sign the contract, we own it. So we're working towards getting that done in February. Mm-hmm. I think a lower cost will be an easier sell for the districts, but we really would like to get these types of contracts out before the March 15th deadline.
That makes sense. I guess one of the parts of the conversation around this is if it's less of a beyond their ADA financial burden, will they send more students? I guess we will see. And then that would, I guess, we'll have to work within that though, with the staffing, right? So.
Yeah, because, $1.5 million for, although there's 17 spots, my understanding, you have 8 to 10 kids, and of those 8 to 10, 7 or 8 are coming on a daily basis. That's a big cost for a small number of students. So I just point that out. The more students we get in the program, that helps.
Good points. Okay, well, those are all my questions, but just for closing for me, I wanted to thank you for, I think it's the first page where it has sorry, I'm not pulling it up now, but where it has the strategic plan and it has the section and then all the work that you've done around that to sort of align it as well as with the LCAP. That's so helpful. So thank you.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Alvaro.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. And by the way, I love the 6-page parent overview, that it's really getting small enough for parents to be able to get their hands around it. So thank you. So I had just 2 questions. One is about, lowering the gateway charge to the districts based on their LCFF, which makes a lot of sense to me. Are we intending to adjust that for COLA? As the districts get more, we charge more?
I think the answer to that would be yes. Our intent has always been not to make money on this, but
No.
yeah.
We can't.
Yeah. So I think I think what's nice about tying it to the ADA amount that they receive is that as they receive additional dollars, we would then increase that fee and that charge. So I would expect it would increase over time.
Okay. And then just, I don't know, just my usual comment, which is as we look at the money that we have to send back to the state, it is now over 50% of what we get in property tax, which is ridiculous. When you look at the shortfall that we're looking at, it is almost exactly that amount of money that we're sending back to the state. So is there any, I'm not going to ask you about the political part of it, but is there any sort of cap on at what point the state says, well, we're not going to take 75% of it? Is there anything in place as a safety?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good. Great. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? No. Trustee Love?
Yes, thank you. One question I had, if one of the trustees or all of them is in an uncontested election and ends up being appointed in lieu of election, does some portion of the 600,000 stay with the county office?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that.
Feel like I remember seeing that they can't charge us if we're not actually.
We don't have
running.
anybody.
They're not officially elections and nobody's being elected if they're pulled off the ballot.
Yeah, and I think, the same cycle 4 years ago, the bill was like almost 800 something because there was so much on that ballot that it's kind of what do we have on it? And then what is on the overall ballot and the overall cost as well. So it can be a high cost. I would say what's nice is for the superintendent election, they don't charge us for that. So it's really just the board member cost that they do charge us for.
Okay, hopefully we'll see what happens on that. I also want to just address the deficit spending, especially for ongoing expenses like staff. I shared this in a survey that I'm not a fan of deficit spending for ongoing expenses. I think it's dangerous. It's not necessarily responsible budgeting and management. And yet there's so many people that are in this new list. So I'm just expressing my concern about it. I feel like when we do have additional funds and to invest those in things that are going to provide dividends later on, if it's equipment we need, whatever the things are, or grants out to nonprofits, that we can then stop. But it is very difficult. And then hiring staff without then making the hard choice, we're sort of saying, well, we want it all. We want to hire more people, but we don't want to make a hard choice and saying, but we're not going to do this anymore. So that money we're saving, we're going to move over. So I'm just expressing my thoughts here on that topic.
No, I appreciate that because when times are different, we're not in that, but when times are different, and many of our districts are, they don't have the same reserves that we have. Those are the harder conversations about what aren't we going to be able to do. And so what I do like the fact that we've documented this now is and if that ever comes in the future, we can talk, these are the things that we brought on and then we can talk about priorities, which is also the harder part on our strategic plan. We did great, adding all those stuff that are on that list, but have we said, are some of the things we're currently doing matching with the strategic plan and what we really want to be doing as an organization? Or is it just something we've done for a long period of time? So I guess there's some muscles here that we're going to have to start exercising that we just haven't had to historically.
Can I just add one extra thing on that? Especially as we move to have a new superintendent, we're sort of tying that person's hands a little bit. Like, you now get all this staff that we've all decided you have to have, and now there's no more room in the budget really for you to explore other things without you then having to go and make the hard choice to get rid of all these people so you can do the things you want to do. So that's just another kind of wrinkle on that, and I'm just expressing an opinion. Thank you.
Trustee Benini.
I just wanted to kind of tag on to that conversation in terms of the strategic plan, and when we're talking about the work that's being done, the return, if you will, how effective it is. I think that's something we're talking about in our board discussions around measurable, goals and things. And so hopefully, when it isn't a time when we have excess, funds, or not excess, but we have reserves, we're looking at that, right? Is it a program that is well received? Is it, so that because those are budgetary conversations that districts are having now, and we're not. So we're just sort of like Trustee Love said, we're just adding on. We're not taking anything away. But I also wanted to point out the fact that some of the funds are being directed toward students. And since I've been on the board anyway, we've accumulated an additional approximately $25 million in our Fund 17. So I'm okay with those types of funds being spent on students. And I think we need to do probably a little bit more of that, probably for our programs. So not right now, but maybe later. Okay, thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Trustee O'Neill.
I was looking here on page 5, and there's the expenditures combined, unrestricted and restricted. I've looked at a lot of budgets through the years, both local school districts, city council, board of supervisors, et cetera. And it seems kind of odd to me that if you combine the certificated and classified salaries, it's $21 million roughly. And then if you management salaries is $18 million, and that's roughly 85% of the staff salaries are paid to management. Did you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. Where that usually shows up is like in a school district, typically teachers are 50% of a budget, and typically your classified are about 20%.
Right.
And then your benefits are about 20-25%.
Right.
Management typically is about 5 to 10.
Yeah.
It's different here because a lot of the work we do is different. We have a lot of people that are doing, in my area, fiscal oversight of school districts, where we're actually getting involved kind of at a higher management level to just do work that looks differently. But it does look differently at a county office of ed. Management salaries tend to be a much higher percentage of the budget than you see in school districts.
Okay, so you're looking at this is because of the higher level of experience that people here need than maybe in the local school district.
Yeah, look, overall, our student programs are relatively small in comparison to what a school district does.
Right.
But the overall breadth of oversight, support that we provide to education, to educators, it's just a different type of work. And that often is done through management positions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Trustee Arias.
Thank you. Well, first of all, again, just thank you for this, all of the work that goes into presenting this report and helping us understand better the budget. One comment that I have is when you talked about determining the facilities improvement budget, I'm very appreciative that you're including teachers and others who are actually going to be using it and that they've seen the needs and what is it that their facilities are needing in the moment or in the future, or how they look at. And so I was happy to hear that the way that is planned is that it's going to be presented and they're going to be involved in the decisions that's going to be made in those improvements in the facilities. So that was just my comment. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
You bet. You know, furniture is one of the things that makes such an impact to education delivery. And I'm hopeful that potentially in this, we have some options because the facility master plan already was working on standards for classroom furniture. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But things like that, where you get input can make a real big difference on a student's learning.
And if I just can say, I think it's different when we go and visit one day and like we kind of estimate or think or analyze, this might be needed here, rather than when you're every single day there, as you know, our teachers or other professionals are. It makes a huge difference. So thank you. Yeah.
Superintendent Chavez.
Yes, I know we're not approving the budget today, but I do want to express gratitude and appreciation to Deputy Superintendent Baltima, Executive Director Manio, and the business services team. This is a new process, as you know, that we've engaged in developing the budget for this year, a more comprehensive, at least from the feedback, than before. And so they've really have taken on a bigger lift, but with a smile and with grace. And also I appreciate the feedback from the board and the conversations we've had. Is it perfect? Not quite yet. There's still some room to grow, but I do appreciate the collaborative effort in getting it to this point. So thank you.
Are there any questions from the public?
I see none. No raised hands.
Well, again, thank you for you and your team. In all the years I've been on the board, we've never had this much information ever. And the clarity that you've given us is so helpful. And I think it's been needed for a long time, but it takes a lot of work. And so thank you again for all you've done. Item 6B, the public hearing on the San Mateo County Office of Education's 2026-2027 proposed budget is now open. Would anyone like to speak on this issue? The hearing is now closed. Office of the Superintendent. Superintendent's comments. Superintendent Chavez, do you have any comments to share?
I do have a couple. Thank you, Vice President Gerard. First, as we close this school year, I want to acknowledge and give gratitude to all the staff members and teachers that work with our students and have gotten them to this point. And I also want to extend congratulations to the students that graduated this school year, specifically our own students for our SMCOE programs. Several of you attended some of the graduations. I did as well. It was very inspiring and emotional at some moments to see our graduates complete this step in their journey and to hear, where they're going. So thank you for attending those graduations. And big kudos and congratulations to the staff and the students and the families to getting students to this point. And then yesterday, we had our United for Youth celebration here at SMCOE, and it was an opportunity to hear the 4 grantees that received Measure K funds to implement programs related to students' mental health. And we heard presentations from Ravenswood, Sequoia Union High School District, Redwood City, and Jefferson Elementary. And a big takeaway for me from the presentations was the normalization of mental well-being, that is the goal. And it made me reflect on my cultural upbringing, that sometimes mental health is not something that we look toward and looking to get resources in that space for cultural reasons. But I think we need to normalize it. And the work that these grantees are doing really is focusing on the students' well-being. They're including student voice in developing these programs. They're including students in the implementation or youth in the implementation of these programs, as well as data to drive these programs. And a takeaway also was that it was not as well attended as we would have liked. So I invited our presenters to looking at opportunities in this fall to bring those presentations to other venues, because the work that they are doing is so important. And all of them had very specific nuggets of excellence and success that I think could be easily replicated and most importantly is in benefit of youth. So it was a great event and really enjoyed listening to these programs. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board members' comments. Item 8A, the board will discuss and act on the recommendation of the superintendent's salaries subcommittee. Would any members of the board subcommittee like to make any comments or ask any questions? No? Yes? Go ahead.
No, you can. You were on the committee.
Huh?
You were on the subcommittee.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, you can make a comment.
Well, I will make a comment. We worked with Kevin Baltima and his team on coming up with the amount of the superintendent salary, and it was done with a comparison of superintendents in our grade 4 category. And we also went with the system of the county office, and it came out to a level 3. So it wasn't something that was taken off the top of our heads. A lot of time and effort and study went into the process. Are there any questions? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that level 3 was for the current superintendent, Marco, given
Yes.
his experience, et cetera. The new superintendent that's still being determined would be starting at step 1.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that was
Okay.
clarified. Thanks.
All right. Yes. So is there a motion to approve the
Vice President Gerard.
I'm sorry.
We have
Oh.
Ms. Albro.
Trustee Alvaro.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate the idea of steps 1 through 5 based for experience. This is something we've wrestled with in different ways for a very long time, and I think that's a really clean way of doing it. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you. It was very helpful, quite frankly. Is there a motion to, pardon me? Is there any public comment?
I don't see any raised hands. No raised hands.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's salary as proposed? There is a motion to approve the superintendent's salary as proposed, made by Trustee Love and seconded by Trustee O'Neill. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Arias,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard,
Aye.
Ms. Love,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill.
Aye.
The motion passes with a vote of 6-0, and the board has voted to pass the motion for the superintendent's salary. Item 8B, Superintendent Chavez will provide information on the San Mateo County Board of Education's candidate policy form, including resolution number 26-35, calling for an election to be held on November 3rd, 2026 for the election of 3 members of the governing board, which have been completed in accordance with Board Policy 9220. Superintendent Chavez.
Thank you, Vice President Gerard. So yes, in your packets, you have these documents that are needed for calling for the election on November 3rd. And these, the election is for the 3 members to the governing board, and the documents include that candidate policy form as well as Resolution 2635. And so the items were completed in accordance with Board Policy 9220.
Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
No comments from the public.
Is there a motion to approve the candidate policy form, including resolution number 26-35? Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the candidate policy form, including resolution number 26-35, made by Trustee O'Neill, and a second by Trustee Love. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Arias,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard,
Aye.
Ms. Love,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill.
Aye.
The motion passes with a vote of 6-0, and the candidate policy form, including resolution number 26-35, has been approved. For item 8C, when an ad hoc subcommittee meets or a representative attends a meeting related to their given assignment, board members may choose to bring a report to the board at this time. Would any board member like to report out? Trustee Love.
Thank you. I actually had 2 reports. First one is the policy subcommittee. We had a meeting on June 8th. We reviewed some policies that we previously had looked at, but we should bring about 6 forward to the meeting on June 24th. And we are going to this summer kind of do a real look at the charter school policies. There's been some new policies from CSBA, and it's time for us to do that and work on a new handbook. And Deputy County Attorney Cho is going to take the lead on that. The advocacy subcommittee met on June 10th and reviewed a few items. I'm just going to give a couple here. We went over the legislation updates. There were several bills that we had supported. Many of them have moved on to the other chamber, so we would just go back and support them again. And we received an update from the Legislative Analyst's Office about the study that Senator Becker had requested on our behalf, and I think we are at a better place with what is expected of that, and we hope to see it at the end of the summer, and then hopefully bring together the task force to talk about it in September or October. And then finally, we spent time working on our outreach toolkit and schedule, and that is something we talked about at the governance committee, but that is giving everybody on the board kind of a slides and the report to the community that they can use to go out and talk to school districts and maybe to city council and other things you might need for that. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Alvaro, did you? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I, out of the corner of my eye, I thought you raised your hand. Yes.
I just wanted to report, first of all, also being on the policy subcommittee, I just really need to thank Patricia for her leadership, because that is a big job. And I've been on that committee for a while. So thank you very much, Patricia, for your leadership on that one. On the outdoor ed part of things, our outdoor ed subcommittee did meet and talked about the building plans and the requests for more money and just the whole idea of what's going on up at Jones Gulch. And we went back, and Lisa Cho was with us too. I was grateful for that. We went back and, we looked at the contracts, we looked at some ideas. And one of the things is that there's supposedly a group meeting. These kind of things fell apart, during COVID, but supposedly we're meeting as a group annually with one representative from the committee and some other people, our superintendent. And so we're going to have a meeting. It'll be our Superintendent Chavez, it'll be Deputy Superintendent Baltima, and me. And we're going to meet with some of the people from the Y probably next week. We're kind of struggling to put together dates and just kind of hammer out where it is we're going with all of this. And then we'll be able to, bring it back to the whole subcommittee and have some discussion and bring it back to the board. So that's what we're doing. It's not that we're dormant. It's that there's just a whole lot going on behind the scenes to try to get these buildings built for our staff.
Thank you very much. Trustee Benini.
I am going to report out as one of the liaisons for the SELPA. So I attended the SELPA Governing Board meeting yesterday, and there was discussion of what they've been preparing as a draft of an MOU that the districts might choose to use. It's optional. And it's in the stage of input right now. So it's not approved yet, or finalized, I should say. So there was some discussion about that, which was very interesting. And then the governing board approved the plan and the services and the budget for the SELPA for the coming year. So that was completed. And then I wanted to just share, given that we have Superintendent Chavez with us, and we're happy he's here, and we've approved this, new salary and all, that there were so many very wonderful comments about Superintendent at the meeting. So I just took a couple notes of them. I was recording them as I was sitting there, but just in terms of him moving into the role, but also supporting in that role for special education for the SELPA. The comments were really how graciously he stepped up, how responsive he is, how he's solution focused, how he can be counted on no matter what, his integrity, his ethics, his decisiveness. And the one that I took away, I think it might have been from Superintendent Zareh, was that she appreciates him as a human because he's been very, very present. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I don't see any raised hands.
Thank you. And there's no action to take on this item. For item 8D, board members will comment. I'll start with Trustee Alvaro.
Okay, thanks. I don't have much more to say. I did attend the Capital Advisors budget on which they do online, which I'm really grateful for. And it's pretty disturbing. I mean, they're such pros, and they know what they're talking about, and they're able to break things down and parse things in a way that all of us can understand. And there were a couple things that really bothered me. This 4.31% super COLA, which may come down based on the legislature, but we're supposed to use it for the new up to 14-week pregnancy leave substitutes, which is a dangerous precedent. I mean, that's a great new law about the 14-week pregnancy leave, but the precedent of requiring us to use our COLA to back fund a particular program that they're passing the law and they're not putting any money in, and the basic aid districts who don't get COLA at all. So there's just some really strange things in there. And also wanting to move state preschool into the Prop 98 bucket, which they're already short funding us on, and they may move childcare in there as well. So there'll be no rebenching for new costs. So if there's increases, when there's increases in costs for preschool or childcare costs, we just eat it. School districts just eat it. And those are just some really, aside from the nonsense with Prop 98 juggling, there's just some very strange things going on with the budget that I'm very concerned with. But it really also makes me appreciate so much Deputy Superintendent Bultema and his team, because, I've managed budgets for businesses where you know what your income is and you can basically control that. You know what your outgo is and you can basically control that. But here, we have so many other boomerangs that are coming in from the state and coming in from the feds, and we can't control those. And I just have so much admiration for the team that is able to keep us on an even keel. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Arias.
Yes. Well, I want to say that I was very happy to attend the graduations because it's my second year attending. So I think, I don't know the previous graduations from this year, from last year's, total improvement of how I saw the representation of the way that they were celebrated. And then also, so I attended the special services, the Hillcrest on May 27, but Gateway Canyon Oaks graduation June 3rd here in the office, San Mateo County office. It just felt to me that, the importance that was given to them, that they were graduating. It felt like you're coming to a venue, specifically for them, very nicely decorated. And I heard also the opportunity of staff within the building to be able to go downstairs and join. So that really, it made me really happy to be able to attend and to see families and teachers talking to each other, staff, all of us, just really being able to celebrate the students. Again, it's always about the students and the families. So with that said, I also want to say that I definitely missed the United for Youth. I had come before, but I missed it because I was at camp. And I see Tammy is here, wondering if she's missing something over there. But Monday and Tuesday, I was at the lounge by San Mateo County Office of Ed program where they stay for 5 days, inviting districts to send. There was even one superintendent, there was teachers, student services, paraeducators. We had Jose from Canyon Oaks, and many other people. But the most important thing that I saw, it was the students. There were, let me see, 9 students, high school students who some of them were, I think 5 of them were graduating. So, but they were the voice of the youth in this case throughout San Mateo County, different high schools. It wasn't one specific, was represented. It was represented and they facilitated. And I felt that I was going to talk too much, but I think the districts really that participated were there really gathered to learn and find strategies for themselves as educators, but it trickles down to their students too, and to do self-care for themselves and their students. So the students' voice was present every day, and the interaction really made a difference because the youth, they were helping us adults learn what they needed and how we saw how they were capable of doing so much given the opportunity. So they were given the opportunity to facilitate. They did icebreakers, they did presentations, they did all the activities that were present. And then they also, I brought my little name tag, they would give us a little pin if you participated. And if they engaged with you, they had their pins. So they would give you one. And so it just felt the reverse of seeing the students being the voice. And Chris continued to say so many times that, that the students were not there for us to questioning them or finding ways to support them. It was for us to be sitting there as learners and letting them be the facilitators and letting them express their needs and their abilities to really organize. They organized so many of the activities and the presentations. And we had two presenters, Dr. Lori Watson and Ann Childers, who talked about race and disabilities. So those two topics are topics that so many times we don't have the time, or we don't speak too much about it in a way that they were talking about how do we disrupt what we're seeing in the outcomes of so many students of in our schools, students of color, right? And we know it, but what are we doing to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen? That they're so many times at the bottom of the school accountability report card or other places. So that was to me, I think is very important in the experience of those 2 days out of the 5. So I just came last night because I stay at the end till the s'mores were given. And then I drove back my 2 hours. But the experience really was the interaction between youth and adult. They were having, lunch, breakfast, playing games. They were doing just conversations about, what they were going to do after school. Like I said, there were 5 who graduated from high school. They were talking about college plans and the care that they show for each other. There were times where I was, because there were teams that came from districts. I was myself there. And so youth would come and say like, oh, can I stay with you? It's just like, I don't know. And then the topics that we're talking about, there were difficult topics, but they bring it to the space, and it was a space where you could disclose sometimes even about yourself. Some adults were disclosing about like things and difficulties and challenges, and the youth were listening and interacting in a way that I feel like that's what we need in our schools. That's what we need in our spaces in education. And so that's what I saw. So I really want to say the lounge really gives that hope to public education. And I really want to advocate to continue funding. I'm not sure how is it funded but I really want to say that what I saw is making a difference because there was a lot of returning educators and other staff. So really also supporting districts that might not be able to pay to participate for their staff will be important. But I cannot express enough that, we talked about the supports that employee and students need. Well, this is a way to support them. Those 5 days that they're there, it's kind of like a recharging to be ready for the next school year, because there's opportunities, not just of the training, the strategies, but it's also at the end of the day, is this being in community with people who are caring for each other, very intentional. So the students' voice, I cannot say enough how important it was to see them. And I wish that we could include them in everything that we do within our education. So yeah, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Love.
Thank you. I want to thank Deputy Superintendent Ultima and Executive Director Magno, who's no longer here, and the team for all of their work. Fabulous as always, and appreciate your patience with our questions and such. I want to thank Director Sarah Notch and for her time. She feels like she's here more than we are at these board meetings. So thank you for everything. It's very helpful. And I wanted to welcome Dr. Sneed to her new role. So we'll just have to do that next time. And I was at United for Youth, a Grant Impact Celebration. It was phenomenal. I wrote down notes that I was going to share with everybody, but we're not going to do that. A lot of great takeaways from that event, and happy to share that with anybody who wants to know. And then the graduations were wonderful. And I think that one of the best things was this year I had the chance to really talk to a lot of students at Hillcrest, and they were excited about getting to go do a class at Skylines, yeah, and things they're doing this summer. So there's a lot of hope and looking forward and confidence and such. So thanks to our staff that have helped make that happen. Thanks.
Trustee Benini?
Okay. So I just have, well, I have a few things. I wanted to start off with just a request that that maybe we could have an update sometime before the start of the school year about how we're going to reach out to our students potentially to have a student board member in the coming year. We probably are working on this, but I haven't heard about it. So I just wanted to, it was on top of my list.
I'll add it to the weekly update.
Thank you. And then I wanted to, well, it's been a busy couple of weeks. I wanted to first start with on the 26th, I attended the JJDPC's meeting. I want to thank Sarah for being there, for attending and giving an update while she was doing the preparations for the graduations. So she was in transit and but present and sharing, you know, that Dr. Jimenez would be, you know, attending going forward. And just on that note, I'll share a little bit about the graduations I was able to attend, but the work of the staff and I think Sarah at Gateway in preparing, you know, the flowers for the Hillcrest graduation, which they were lovely. I heard that you saw photos because we aren't allowed to have our cameras there, but some people are. So I think Chris took pictures or someone, but they were lovely. So I just want to thank you, Sarah, for that because it was really nice. And then let's see, then I attended, I think all of the graduations, but the El Portal, Hillcrest, Gateway, they were all just really just so nice and really just lovely to see the culmination with the students and the joy and the families and the flowers, you know, that the students give to their loved ones. And it's really special. So that was wonderful. And then I also, for the first time, was able to go to the Oxford Day Academy graduation with Trustee Torres and Trustee Gerard. And that was, it was really, really nice. Of course, it was a farewell for Ms. Bennett as she was sharing her words, and I was crying while she was talking because it was just very emotional. But she was talking about dreams. That was her theme, and carrying dreams and how impactful they are. That anyone can just declare a dream, like I'm going to do this. But really bringing it to fruition is a whole nother thing. And so there were a lot of lots of advice given on how students can kind of carry that forward into whatever they're doing next, you know, making sure they knew everybody was there to support them, similar to our graduations, and that they should ask for help and that they should be kind to themselves and a lot of self-care. But it was really lovely. So I think that's all the graduations. And then I just wanted to also share that I attended, I just decided, I looked at the list of things that are going on at the county office and I just said, oh, I'm going to register for the UPK Leadership Institute, the Universal Pre-K. And I just went, and it was at Curiosity. And I had a chance to talk to a lot of, actually some of the attendees of a lot of TK teachers and leaders, and a lot of even our Kent Award recipients were at my table, and it was really nice. But I wanted to just share how the messages there aligned with the United for Youth messaging and the work that's going on. The keynote speaker was Polly Yu, and it was a lot of, her presentation was about trauma-informed practices and being self-aware, and the fact that what we know very well, that if staff are not well, they can't share that wellness with students. And the thing I took away from her talking about that was how we have to co-regulate, and the students and the staff or the teachers and the students. And it was very personal to me because that's what I do with my child every day, and I have since he was little, since you know, we have these mirror neurons and you have to be calm to induce calm in others. And so taking care of how you show up is really important. And so the thing I took away from it was that the statistic was that you have to have about hundreds of times of this co-regulation between a child and an adult, perhaps like in that space, before they can self-regulate. So these are the things our teachers are doing, and it was just, that number was staggering to me, but it was impressive. And again, the focus also for the United for Youth was, a lot on priority 3, a lot on greater access for treatment for services and for opportunities for students, but there was a sincere focus, as we had heard also at the Safe and Supportive Schools presentation earlier in the year, on staff. So a lot of focus on staff and students and wellness. And so all of that just brings, the closure to the year, it's really nice. And I also want to thank our staff for the budget and the LCAP and all of that as well, because that was amazing. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Trustee O'Neill?
Mine is boring, but I attended all the 3 out of the 4 graduations and also the budget meeting the board had. One issue, I also attended the Jefferson High School District Staff Housing Board of Directors meeting. And one of the main goals that they did that was to try to have staff save the money to buy a house. And we had our second staff member from the savings in there be able to buy a house. And that was really kind of like a success. Okay, it's at 99% occupancy and there was teachers that when they had offers at 2 different districts and they chose Jefferson because of the housing. And so they were able to they reserve 5 housing units for new hires every year. And they were able to have 5 math teachers this year. Just coincidentally, it was math year. One year was special ed year, and stuff. But it was just exciting to see that they had, a second staff member be able to buy a house through the program. And where the housing subcommittee is going to meet tomorrow. And the reason that both these people were able to buy a house was by going to the home buyer program for Schools First Credit Union. And I want to talk to our subcommittee about doing a presentation here for the staff because it was like 3 or 4 year program, what you need to do to buy a house and save for a house. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Other than that, that was it. The piers falling down in Pacifica. Sarah can watch it from her house.
It's really sad. It's really sad to see. Very sad. Well, I won't keep you much longer. I just want to say how much I enjoyed all of the graduations, and I think I hit all of them, including Oxford Day Academy. And that's one that I have been the only board member that has attended that for a number of years. So it's kind of nice when they know me and they say, oh, good, you came again. It's a nice feeling, but all the graduations were exceptional. And the work that went into them to make them special and the kids feel special was wonderful. And I want to thank you and everybody else that was involved in that. People kept saying to me, this is what we wait for. And that's really true. This is what the whole year is about, are those graduations and seeing those successes. And not only on the kids that are graduating, but they bring other students in to see what hard work can do and that they can do it too. And so it's all about the success, and that's what we all want. Quickly, I will be attending this weekend the ACCBE Board of Directors and Board Representatives retreat up in Sacramento. So I'll be going up Friday. It's Friday night and then all day Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing a lot of our fellow board members from all over the state, because they'll be there. So, and we have a very full, productive agenda planned. And with that, I am going to adjourn this meeting And the next regular meeting will take place on Wednesday, June 24th, 2026 at 7 PM. And this meeting is adjourned and I don't even have a gavel. I went to look for it and I'm like, oh no. Right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. You did.
Yeah, I put in the box. I must have started and it got distributed. So sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I'll probably live. Oh, I want these. I want to put this over here.
I'm reading.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, I think I have to